Okay, so let's talk about, we already discussed where the dateline is. We also discussed the reasons behind all the shitas. Then we discussed L'maisa on the second shiur. L'maisa, what should we do when we're in Suffolk? What's the best thing to do? And now we're going to discuss what is the halacha when you cross the dateline, when you're switching days, how that affects davening, how that affects when you light candles, how that affects various halachas when you cross the dateline according to everybody. Not a discussion of whether you crossed it, but what to do now that you have crossed it. So we started off, we ended the last year, we quickly discussed when it comes to bris or pidyon haben or bar mitzvah, do we view your personal day or do we go by the local day? And the example was, for example, if you went from Taiwan or Australia for that matter to New York, and now that baby was born on Monday, do we follow the personal day? And therefore that baby could have his bris on Sunday, because he already, in terms of sundowns and suns ups, shkia and nates, he's already up to his halachical 8th day. Or do we say that he has to follow the local day and he could only have that bris on Monday? And we said that the B'tzel Chachma, along with the B'tzel Chachma says that you follow your personal day, do the bris on Sunday, whereas the Cheskel Roth says you do that bris on Monday. Okay. Now, what about some more nafkaminas? And each nafkamina needs to be discussed and thought about on its own. Because everything we're going to discuss is really a question, is it a din in the individual, or is it a din in the day at large? If it's going to be a din in the individual, then it's going to be his personal count. But if it's a din in the day at large, then you're going to follow the local day. So Shiva Nikiyim. So Shiva Nikiyim is Suffer law, and she counts for herself. So therefore it is a personal count, and therefore, usually the way that it would work is if a woman does her hefsek on Monday, then she could go to the mikvah Monday night. Over here, if this woman did her hefsek in Australia on Monday, and now she's going to the mikvah in New York, she goes on Sunday night. Because even though on the local days she would have to, in theory, wait to Monday, but since for Suffer law, it's her personal count, she will go Sunday night. What about vestos? So when it comes to the vest HaChodesh, the chashash of Chazal is the day is goyrim the re'iyah. And therefore, if the chashash is that the day is goyrim the re'iyah, therefore we're going to follow the calendar day. I could care less about her personal count. However, when it comes to a floga, the vest of floga, and the vest of oinabenis, that's based on how many days it was for her. And therefore, for that, we will follow her personal count. So when figuring out the dates, it's a little complicated, but that's kamat l'kuli alma. That's the psak. What about matzah, shofar, Megillah? So what's the case? Let's have some fun. Yeah, guy, he's in Australia, right? And Rosh Hashanah was Sunday, Monday, and he's flying out Tuesday morning of Australia. Going to be arriving in. He's going to be arriving in New York, in Los Angeles. Early Tuesday morning, late Tuesday night. Let's say he goes. Let's make it more fun. He goes Monday night, Matzah Rosh Hashanah, from Australia to New York. By the time he's going to land, actually Matzah Shabbos is going to land on Rosh Hashanah. So let's actually take that back Tuesday morning. I'm sorry, because I don't want him landing on Rosh Hashanah, because that's for sure a problem. So he leaves Tuesday morning, and from Australia, he's going to land in the middle of the night, Monday night, Matzah Rosh Hashanah in New York. However, when he flies out, he's going to, at some point in this flight, he's going to cross the dateline. And when he crosses the dateline, depending on which dateline is going to depend on which point, the Chazon Ish immediately, Mid-Pacific a little bit later, and the International, and eventually Rav Chikatinsky. But for all of them, it doesn't make a difference. It's just a question at what point he's going to be crossing that date line. When he crosses that date line on Monday night, Matzah Rosh Hashanah, that will turn into Sunday night Rosh Hashanah. Or if it's already light, if the sun has already come up by the time that he crosses, it will switch from Tuesday morning, the day after Rosh Hashanah, to Monday morning Rosh Hashanah. Does he have a chiyuv to blow shofar on the flight? Excuse me, stewardess. Everybody, I gotta do 30 kolas. Really, maybe even 100 kolas. Does he have a chiyuv of blowing shofar on the flight? Shema Kashayla. So the poskim say, right poskim, outside of Shlem Zalman, that since it's a chiyuv that he was already mekayim his chiyuv of shofar, he does not need to blow shofar anymore, because he was already mekayim that chiyuv. So no shofar. Let me ask you a question. He's on the flight, and he turns to the guy next to him, and he says, "How you doing? You Jewish?" The guy says, "Yeah." He says, "You heard shofar yesterday?" "Nah, I didn't go to shul this year." Would he be able to blow shofar for that guy who didn't yet hear shofar? So the answer is yes, because at that point it is Rosh Hashanah. Once again, same thing as we discussed Shabbos last week, he cannot do any malacha. That guy on the plane, even though he was already Mekayim, he can't do malacha, but he still doesn't need to blow shofar because he already blew shofar. But it's Rosh Hashanah, so the guy next to him, yeah, you could, sure, that guy needs to hear shofar, so give him the shofar for him to blow. Now, what if that guy doesn't know how to blow? Are you allowed to be mitzvah him? Yeah. It's just like on Rosh Hashanah where you already heard shofar, you could blow it again for somebody. So yes, you could blow shofar for him. Could you make a bracha? Obviously, it's always better for the guy who's getting the mitzvah to make the bracha, but he's some frail guy. He doesn't know how to make a bracha. So you can make a bracha for him and blow shofar for him, that guy on the plane. And the same exact thing would be true for Megillah, Mikra Megillah, if it was the day after Purim. Or the same thing would be true for Matzah, if it was the day after Pesach. You already were Mekayim your mitzvah, you don't have to eat it, the matzah. But the guy next to him, it's a nice idea again to eat some matzah on that flight. So that would be good fun. Shlomo Zalman doesn't agree with that, but Reb Poskim agree with that. And let's just be clear, what's the difference? Why did I say on Shabbos, Lefi, we'll call it Reb Poskim, you don't have to. So if you wrote, why? Let me rephrase this. Why am I saying by Shabbos you have to keep Shabbos, whereas by the mitzvah of shofar and the mitzvah of matzah I'm saying you don't have to? The answer is because the mitzvah of shofar and the mitzvah of matzah and the mitzvah of mikra megillah are your personal mitzvah. If they're your personal mitzvah, you were mekayim that mitzvah already. You do not have to do it again. However, Shabbos is a mitzias of Shabbos in that place. It's not that you already did Shabbos. That place is a mitzias of Shabbos, and therefore you have to keep Shabbos. Okay. What about Hanukkah? Let's get the case down. This guy is in Australia, and he lit the candles for the 5th night of Hanukkah, and then took the 8 p.m. flight to California. On that flight, it was night already when he took off. It was night. He lit at home. He got on the flight. It was night. It becomes light, and then becomes dark again. And he arrives. Actually, the truth is, if it's 8 p.m., he's going to actually get into Los Angeles. If he got to New York, it would be dark already. If he got into Los Angeles, but when he gets there, it will still be day, before the 5th night. It's before the 5th night. Let's do it like that. That would be nice fun. So he takes off. He lit the 5th night in Australia. He gets there, it's daytime, it gets dark again. He looks around, sees the signs by the party, and everybody else around him is lighting the 5th night of Hanukkah. What does he do? What is it for him? Does he light 5? Does he light 6? Does he not light at all? What is he going to do?
There's no chiyuv of a number. You're doing it out to
So you're right. So the place can say he's just going to confuse people if he lights 6 nights. Then so that's out of the question. So, but what night is it for him? So according to Reb Mel Lieber says that it is his 6th night. B'tzal Chachma also. B'tzal Chachma and Reb Mel Lieber, because B'tzal Chachma always goes personal. So this is your 6th night. But on your 6th night, you're going to light 5 candles.
Nafkamina to not make a bracha on the 8th night.
Exactly. What's nafkamina whether it's your 6th night? So when it comes to that local 8th night, for you, you're up to 9. So what do you do on that night? So you can't light on that night with the bracha because it's not Hanukkah with you, for you. So do you light it all? So al chashad, because the Gemara is always choshish of chashad, of not lighting. So you have to light, but you light without a bracha on the local 8th night. And what about if you go the opposite direction? So if you go the opposite direction, where you're going from New York to whatever, to Australia, and you end up missing a night, let's say. So that's not no big kasha. Then you're just like somebody. Oh, sorry. Let me just actually be clear. You went. Actually, I want to say this in a clearer way. If you went from Los Angeles to Australia, right? You left on the 5th day of Hanukkah, and it was light the entire time. You did not have a sunset on that flight. It was light the entire time, and you reached there, and they tell you it's the 6th day. So what do you light that night? So, after the day after the 6th day, they're going to be lighting 7 candles that night, right? So Zotar B'l Yashiv, you light 7 candles just like the locals, even though for you it's really the 6th day. So and on their 8th day you light 7 candles, and their 9th day, then you don't light at all. You don't light on their 9th night, which for you should have been the 8th. Because it's not a mitzias of Hanukkah then. You needed, Zotar B'l Yashiv, you needed to be a personal Hanukkah and a mitzias of Hanukkah in the location. You need both factors, and therefore, even though for you, you're up to day 8, and you should be lighting for day 8, for the 8th night, I should say, but you need a local mitzias of Hanukkah, and since you do not have that, you do not light. However, according to Reb Sheinberg and Reb Chaim Kanievsky, they say Hanukkah is dependent on the local custom and the local understanding of the day. It is not a personal matter. And therefore, in our first example, when you lit the 5th night, and you show up in New York or Los Angeles, and they're up to now the 5th night, so you relight again the 5th night, and you follow the local custom. Oh, that year you lit 9 times? Not a problem. That's the psak of Reb Sheinberg and Reb Chaim Kanievsky. There's no clear hachra on this, but Reb Yashiv's shot seems pretty cool. But I guess whichever way you choose. Davening. How does this work, davening? We know it's famous machlokes, Rambam, whether the chiyuv of davening is, according to the Rambam, 3 times a day you have a chiyuv of davening, whereas the Ramban says you only have a chiyuv be'is tzarch. Now, l'maisa we all paskin that we have a chiyuv of davening 3 times a day. That's how we paskin. The question is, what is a day? So what do I mean? So let's get back to Australia. I went and I davened Shachris in Australia. Daven Mincha, let's do it like this. I daven my Mincha minyan in Australia. I daven Mincha Gedola, 1 p.m. Got on my 4 p.m. flight in Australia. 2 p.m. flight, right before the plane, getting on the plane. A minyan from Mincha Gedola. I took my 2 p.m. flight out of Australia to Los Angeles. It got dark on the plane, This was on Monday afternoon. We daven mincha. It got dark on the plane. We daven Ma'ariv for Monday night. We go and we wake up. We land now in California, and I think if my math is correctly, it's 8 a.m. Monday morning in California. Now, do I daven Shachris again? But I already davened Shachris Monday, and I davened Mincha Monday, and I davened the Monday night Ma'ariv already. Do I daven again? But I already davened. But for me, then the sun went down and the sun went up. So what exactly do I do? So according to B'tzel Chachma and Reb Yashiv, who generally goes like him, we follow your personal day. The sun went down in that flight. The sun went up. You daven Shachris again. You daven Mincha again. You daven Ma'ariv again. According to Rabbi Cheskel Roth, which has Rav Scheinberg, Rav Moshe Feinstein, Rav Chaim Kanievsky, and Rav Shlomo Zalman on their team, so it's a pretty strong team. They argue, and they say, no, you already daven Shachris Monday, you're off the hook. You daven Mincha Monday, you're off the hook. You look at the scoreboard. Look at your sheet where you're marked in your Cheshbon HaNefesh chart. Your Cheshbon HaNefesh chart says you already davened Monday Shachris, Monday Mincha, Monday Ma'ariv. You're good. You're off the hook. No more davening for you. So it's a pretty wild machlokes. And let's take it the opposite direction. Now the guy is flying back from California to Australia. But the question is, how many times? Let's get this straight. Let's explain. It's not so simple. No, it's not so simple. Let's get this straight. He davens Nates in California on Monday morning. And then he flies to Australia. And he's going to arrive there. I forgot to check out the exact hours, but he arrives, I think, a couple hours later. But it's already the next day. But it's light the entire flight. It didn't get dark. Over the course of the flight, so he davened Shachris Monday morning, right? And he arrives at the time that you would daven Shachris, but it's Tuesday in Australia. So according to the B'tzel Chachma, no, you don't daven. And on the plane, you don't need to daven Mincha on the plane. You don't need to daven anything else on the plane. Ma'ariv for Monday night, definitely not. And now Tuesday morning, you get there. Do you need to daven Shachris Tuesday morning? So the B'tzel Chachma, no. Why? I davened, and there hasn't been a sunset since the last time I davened, and therefore I don't need to daven again. But according to Rabbi Cheskel Roth, listen, you have to fit in the Monday Mincha, and you have to fit in the Monday Ma'ariv. And the Monday Ma'ariv L'meisa is going to be a big problem because the sun's not going down, so you don't really have a time that you're going to be able to daven the Monday Ma'ariv. So you daven the Monday Mincha on that plane, and then assuming that it worked out that there was a time to do it, and then when you get there, you daven the Tuesday morning Shachris, because you didn't daven Tuesday morning Shachris, and you have to do a second Shemoneh Esrei Tashlumim for the Monday night Ma'ariv that you missed. Correct, but you.
You were never Mechayiv. There was no.
Well, it was Einus because you missed the davening.
You didn't, because the time never came for it.
Yeah, it's a pretty funny situation, because once again, Rabbi Cheskel Roth's pshat is you have to make a check at every spot on your Cheshbon HaNefesh paper, and you didn't do it. So, fine. Let's get a little bit more. So what do you do tachas? So definitely the easiest way is to pick one of these shittas. But Tarek Yisrael gives us a little bit of a hard time with this. And he says, in all these cases which are sveikas, which is like almost all these cases, you should daven with the tanai of it being a nedava if you're not mechayev in the tefillah. So therefore you're going to be davening all over the place consistently with the tanai. I would say once again that this is for the person that wants to be makbid and do everything 100% correct. Then I'm asking the best thing is to make it tonight and do the shtickle. For your uncle that's calling you, who's not going to do this, what should I do? I would probably just tell him to follow the Reb Rosh, who seems to have more poskim on his side, and follow the calendar day, the Cheshbon Nefesh chart checklist, and follow that across the board. But for those that want to be makbid and do the best, I would say follow the Tarech Yisrael and do the Tfilas Nidava, or Tanai, that it might be a Tfilas Nidava method. Okay, what do we do about Rosh Chodesh? So you fly from New York to Australia, and you arrive on Rosh Chodesh, Mincha time. Right, you arrive Mincha time. Do you daven Musaf? Do you daven Halal? No, there wasn't an opportunity to daven Shachris by Shachris time, Musaf and Halal. By Shachris it was the other day. So what do? So you daven Mincha, Musaf, and Halal. That's, according to everybody agrees, that's what you're going to do, because the matziv, just similar to Shabbos, the matziv is, in Australia, it is Rosh Chodesh. If it is Rosh Chodesh, and you didn't daven Musaf, and...
It's not a count, it's totally in the
it's not, exactly. And therefore, you're going to daven Musaf and Halal. Now, what about when you go in the opposite direction? I already davened Musaf and Halal in Australia, and now I'm flying to New York, and now they're davening Musaf and Halal again. Do I daven it again? So once again, Rabbi Cheskel says no. Take out your Cheshbon Nefesh chart, and it says that you daven Mincha, Halal and Musaf with lots of kavanah, and you have a check there. You're great. You don't need to do it again. But once again, Psal Chachma is going to say, wait a second. Did I say this the wrong way around? Yeah.
No, that's all right.
Yeah. And the Psal Chachma is going to say that, yeah, you're going to daven again. Yeah. And Tarech, what does the Tarech Yisrael say to do? This is a little bit more tricky, because there's no such thing as a Musaf Nidava. And so he says daven halal with no bracha. Worst case, it's tehillim. Or even better is if you could ask the guy next to you to be mitzi you on the bracha. And when it comes to musaf, do it behir. And if you do musaf behir, you'll be potentially yitza, huh? Oh, that's an interesting idea, to ask the shlich tzibur to be mitzi you, so to speak here. Maybe he doesn't actually bring that as an option, but l'chayra that should work. Okay. What about Berachos HaShachar? Do you make brachos in the morning? Berachos HaShachar, Berachos HaTorah, Shlois Hanagai, etc. You know, what do you make all those brachos? So according to Roy Paiskim, that's a personal chiyuv, and therefore when you undergo a sunset and a sunrise, even if you're repeating the same day again, you will make a Berachos HaShachar. What about even, yes, because over here they're maskim that this is a personal chiyuv. This is not a date dependent chiyuv.
There's also a personal chiyuv, but he says, look at your checklist the way you
yeah.
say it.
So
here I can look at my checklist.
No, because Berachos HaShachar is personal when there's a shachar. It's a bracha that's totally in shachar. So now that there's a new morning, the sun has come up, which means new morning. So you have to make new brachas. Now, what about Berachos Kriya Shema? So they're going to have the same machlokes between Psal Chachma and Cheskel Rot on Berachos Kriya Shema, and the Tarech Yisrael says the eitzah again of do it behir. And as I said, the same thing that I said before, this is for those that want to be machmar, that can handle it, etc. What about Kriya Shema? So by Kriya Shema, the pasuk says b'shachar mecha. When you get up and you go to sleep, when you lay down and when you get up. So therefore, the person deduces that is also a personal chiyuv, and therefore, when you personally undergo a sunset and sunrise, Sunset, you have a new chiyuv at night. Sunrise, you have a new chiyuv during the day. What about tefillin? Do you have to put tefillin again? So that's going to once again be the same machlokes that of whether you actually have to. The B'tzal Chachma is going to say you need to put. Let's say we're going through a new sunrise, but I already did Monday. I put on tefillin in Australia on Monday, and now the sun went down, came back up, and it's Monday in New York. So the B'tzal Chachma once again is going to say sun went down, sun went up. You have a new chiyuv of putting on tefillin. Whereas the Reb Cheskel Roth is going to say, no, you put on tefillin on Monday. Once again, checklist. You put on tefillin on Monday, you do not need to put it again on in New York's Monday. Tarek Yisrael says, put on tefillin with the bracha. Because there's actually nothing wrong. You can put on tefillin twice in one day with a bracha. There's nothing wrong with it. So you might as well just put on tefillin with the bracha. You could say Kriya Shema again, it also doesn't hurt. Okay, what about Sefirat HaOmer? So, when you travel from, let's start off, you travel from New York to Australia. Right, so now you're going to lose a day. It went from the 18th day in Sefirat, and it jumped to the 19th day in Sefirat. But you never had the night of the 19th. You jumped straight from the day of the 18th to the day of the 19th. So what do? So what you do is the same thing you do as if you missed any night. You count the 19th during the day without a bracha, because when you count during the day, it's without a bracha. And then you continue that night, weiter, the 20th.
That's as simple as it's not 19 for you.
So this is, you'll see in a second. I'm working with Roy Paiskim, including both Reb Cheskel Roth and B'tzal Chachma, that when it comes to Sefirat, you count the local day. You do not count personal. I'll get into personal in a second. But according to Roy Paiskim, you're going to count the local day, and therefore you missed the night. It's not a problem. Count the day, weiter. And what happens when you go eastward from Australia to New York? You counted the 18th night, and now you get there, and what are they doing? They're counting the 18th night again. Yeah. So you counted the 19th night, I think I said, and now you get in the plane, you fly from Australia to New York or to Los Angeles, and you go to shul that night because you want to do your tefillas and Meir shtickle at shul, and Suffolk tonight in Dava, and they're counting, and they're counting 19 again. What do? So the person say you count without a bracha. That's everybody's agreeing, because you're not really mechayev, but if the tzibur's counting, you count and whatever. And you should count anyways, just in case there's a chiyuv of counting here, so you count without a bracha. Okay.
The shaila is, if it would be personal, then you would be mechayev the next night.
Correct. But we're saying it's not personal.
Right.
However, there is a minority opinion that says that it is personal. And even though they are going to be counting 19, for you count 20. And you're going to be one ahead of them. And what ends up happening is you end up having Shavuos a day early. Because Shavuos is the 50th day after Pesach, after the first night of Pesach. And therefore, you're going to end up, Shavuos will be a day early. And I've heard that this is apparently the Psak of Chabad, that you follow your personal account, and therefore Shavuos will be, it doesn't say anywhere in the Torah that Shavuos is Vav Sivan. It says it's 50 days after Pesach, and therefore for you it will be a day early. This is not the accepted opinion. Once again, I heard that this is the opinion of Chabad, which is pretty cool, but that's how it would work out. Okay. That is Sefirat. What about fast days? What do you do by a fast day? So let's just talk about, first of all, by a fast day. Let's say I fly on a fast day, Dateline aside. I fly from New York to Eretz Yisrael on the night of Asar B'Tevis, and I shorten Asar B'Tevis. I shorten it. It ends 7 hours. Instead of a 24-hour period, it's a 17-hour period. Do I have to keep the full 24 hours? I flew from New York to Eretz Yisrael. So do I have to keep the full 24 hours and it will end at 2 o'clock in the morning in Eretz Yisrael? Or do I end the normal, whatever, 6 o'clock, whatever it is? I don't know what time it ends, Sarbatevis, but whatever it ends.
Anybody can hold that it goes by hours?
So nobody holds it goes by hours, and everybody holds you follow the local custom, the local time. So you could, flying from Eretz Yisrael to New York, you'll extend, other way around. Flying from New York to, I said it right. New York to Eretz Yisrael, you're going to shorten the day. Eretz Yisrael to New York, you're going to extend the length of the fast day. Now what happens if you're flying into Sarbatevis, and you fly from Australia to New York, the middle of a Sarbatevis, middle of the afternoon. And in the middle of the afternoon, it switches from a Sarbatevis, the 10th of Tevis, to the 9th of Tevis. You've left a Sarbatevis, but it's daylight, no night. Has a Sarbatevis ended, or has it not ended? So, according to Rav Scheinberg and Yisrael Vezmanim, the fast is over. You've left a Sarbatevis. It's not a Sarbatevis, and therefore your fast is over. But according to Rav Yashiv and Chaim Kanievsky, you could only end the fast with a shkia, with a tzeis. If the sun didn't go down, your fast didn't end. And you have to continue fasting on that 9th of Tevis, in our example, until...
When you land, it's going to be a Sarbatevis.
Yeah, but it's not a nighttime fast. It only starts in the morning.
Oh, it's going to be night, okay.
So, so it's not so bad. But yeah, and then your fast is going to end.
The fast the next day?
So we're going to get in that in a second. And in the opposite direction, where you're going to go, your Asar B'Tevis could turn into your 10th of Tevis could turn into your 11th of Tevis. According to Rav Yashiv and Chaim, you have to wait until Shkia in order to break your fast. Whereas according to Rav Scheinberg and the Sefer Yisrael Vazmanim, the second you leave Asar B'Tevis, you no longer have to fast. What happens when you've fasted Asar B'Tevis? You completed it. You're in Australia and you had Asar B'Tevis. You broke your fast. And now you fly on that flight to California and you re-enter Asar B'Tevis. Do you have to fast again? So there already, the poskim say, everyone agrees that you don't need to fast because you've done your Asar B'Tevis already. And if you've done your Asar B'Tevis already, you completed your Asar B'Tevis fast, then you do not have to fast. It works out, Lefira of Yashiv, and so there might be some Marasayan things, but I think there's enough people that don't fast for all sorts of reasons. I mean, I wouldn't say to eat in public, but I don't know. I mean, this is a general shayla. Somebody has a heter not to fast. Should he drink a coffee in shul while learning when he has a heter not to fast because he has a heart condition? Good question. Now, Lefir of Yashiv and Reb Chaim Kanievsky ends a little strange because when you leave in the 10th day to go to the 9th day, you have to complete the fast, and they're still going to make you fast the next day. But when you've actually completed a proper fast on Asar B'Tevis, then they don't make you repeat Asar B'Tevis again. So it's going to be a little complicated. I'm not saying there's no room. There is obviously room to explain it, but it's a little complicated to explain why they would say such. So that's the basic shaylas in when to keep, in what to do with all the mitzvahs. Now I just wanted, with the remaining time, to discuss the inyan of the Arctic Circle. It is not, I'll explain you what the Arctic Circle is in a second. It's not directly a part of the Dateline sugya, but if there's any time to talk about the Arctic Circle, it's right after you're talking about the Dateline. So let's just explain what the Arctic Circle. There are certain parts of the globe above the 65 degree altitude, whatever, and below on the bottom, the North Pole and the South Pole areas. Well, that's the real top. Some places you have in Norway. There's different places that people visit, and certain places in Alaska have this. I think I heard maybe some places in Russia, might have this also, where you'll have, let's say, a lot of these places, 2 months in the summer, the sun will not go down. It will stay daylight. The sun will go up in the beginning, let's say the end of June or something like that, and then it will come back down. It will get dark in September, and they'll have this.
How does that work out like that?
And because the globe is on a tilt.
Oh, the globe's on a tilt, right?
And then it's in the winter. They'll have 2 months in January time, those same places, that it will be dark for 2 months straight without the sun ever coming up, which is a very weird scenario. And when you go to places, the most northern part of the world, namely the North Pole on the top, or the most south part of the world, namely the South Pole, over there you're going to have 6 months of daytime followed by 6 months of nighttime. So the question is, how does this affect halacha? How does this, when do you daven chakras if you go there? When do you daven mincha? When do you daven ma'ariv? When is there Shabbos? When's Shabbos? When does the day end? When's Yontif? When's Rosh Hashanah? How do you figure these things out? What is what? When is when? What does the Torah have to say about this? So this was not a very big issue historically. Historically, people used to be more worried about how do I find bread to eat, and and prevent the goyim around me, or stop the goyim around me from killing me. That used to be our issues. But Baruch Hashem, B'lei and Hara, we have a lot more ashiras, etc., and safety in our world. And now there are a lot of Yidden that want to travel to these places. And, maybe there's some scientists out there that want to do some experiments and go to these places. So, cruises go to these places and all sorts of interesting things. So what is the halacha there? How do we determine the zmanim? When is day and when is night? Because in general, normal halacha, it's very simple. Night is when the sun goes down. Day is when the sun comes up. What do we do? So there's not too much written on this. More recently, the Pesachim started writing on this, but as I said, it wasn't a big issue historically. So what is the psak? So there's a fascinating pshat of the Minchas Elazar. The Minchas Elazar, I think it was the Munkatcher Rebbe, maybe?
Yeah.
So the Minchas Elazar, he says that, what ends a day? When the sun goes down. And therefore, you go to, let's say, that whatever it is in Sweden or Norway, that the sun stays up for 2 months, 1 day. You daven chakras, one of the first days that you get there. Daven mincha, a month in, a month and a half in, whatever it is. And, and when it gets dark again, that's when you daven ma'ariv. That's it. It's 1 day. What day is it? Tuesday. And if you go to the North Pole, how does it go? You have, for 6 months, it's 1 day. You fit in that chakras mincha, proportionately in that 6 month period for day. And for night, you daven ma'ariv. And you have, a pretty easy time. So the trivia, next time that the Game 7 of the World Series is going to be on Shabbos, or Game 7 of the NBA Finals is going to be on Shabbos, and you want to figure out, how could I watch it? No, I can't not watch it. So you have to go to the North Pole and rely on the Minchas Elazar's Shita, and then you'll be able to watch that game, even though it's on Saturday. Maybe. That's the Minchas Elazar. It's fascinating. And when Shabbos, according to Minchas Elazar, in the North Pole. So it's, according to Minchas Elazar,